Welcome to Round 3 Reviews, here with an extra special video, a physical copy review. Many thanks to Imprint Film / VO Vision Entertainment from Australia that have generously sent me their entire February collection. I have done an unboxing video for this. There will be a link in the description below for that, where I've done an unboxing for all these editions, including what's on here, and including today's video, Peking Opera Blues. Overwhelmed, delighted, very surprised. I was not expecting to get their entire collection for that February lineup, and I'm very honored to be checking out these editions for the first time, sometimes second viewing, and to do a bit of comparison and to see what you're going to get in terms of these editions alongside the wonderful films that we're celebrating in terms of Hong Kong cinema and, of course, the Golden Princess Library. And I think with these editions, they are definitely something quite special, and I was really blown away, really surprised by how good the packaging is and how much they've gone a little bit extra compared to some of the competitors. Today's video and delight, we're talking about Troy Hawk's Peking Opera Blues, released in 1996. First time watching in the best possible format in a brand new 4K restoration, part of the Golden Princess Library from Shout Factory's requirement. They've shared these rights between multiple different distribution companies. For the UK, of course, would be the Arrow Video Edition. Australia would be Imprint Asia specifically. And of course, Shout Factory did their version a little while ago as well. And this one's a bit of a double whammy for me because I already previously picked this one up on the Arrow Video Edition a little while ago before even getting this version. And it's a bit of an interesting one to kind of compare and contrast. And I will be doing so on the channel and giving you my honest thoughts and impressions on both the film itself, the special features, the packaging, and just to kind of see again what the value for money you're going to get in terms of getting these editions. You know, what is your value in terms of picking up either one? And as mentioned multiple times on the City on Fire and The Killer and Hardbox, which I've done recently, it doesn't matter which one you pick up. You can pick up the Shout Factory, Arrow, Imprint. You can pick up one or the other, all three. They're all coming from the same source in terms of Shout Factory, giving them the access to these films. Before diving into the feature film itself, and those brand new wonderful special features, which I really enjoyed checking out on the Imprint version, I thought it'd be a fun little curiosity, a fun little comparison to dive into both the Imprint edition and the Arrow Video. I have access to both, being one purchased and one was a gifted from Imprint Asia themselves. So I thought, take the opportunity, let's dive into both of the Imprint and the Arrow Video version. And to see which one is the best bang for buck. And here is the wonderful special features. I imagine this is very similar to the Arrow version. I'm curious about the subtitles. I'll definitely check this one out soon in terms of doing comparison. But what they decided to do is something a bit more unique. They decided to do something a bit more different compared to the other competitors and giving you a hardback edition. Which is pretty cool, which is what they're known for doing. And giving you a steelbook alongside a pretty nifty book. Wow, holy shit. That is pretty fucking dope. God damn. So in terms of presentation, I gotta say Imprint's definitely impressing me here, I gotta say. Wow. Now let's compare the Arrow Video version, which has brand new artwork there, which is fantastic. You get the standard kind of slipcase. You do get different artwork there. I think this is one of the original posters. Just get the 4K itself, and you do get a mini booklet, which is the standard kind of Arrow kind of signature. It's the Arrow Video UK 4K edition there for comparison, and I think it's an interesting kind of to talk about both versions and to kind of see what the best value is for money, to see what you want as a consumer. Because I do think, if I'm being completely honest, and this video is about being completely honest, I do think the Imprint version in terms of the Asia edition has the better packaging. I think it has the better celebration of the film itself. The hardback edition, I think it's very premium. I think the steelbook edition, well with it, with the Blu-ray and the 4K edition, which I think is a different comparison, especially when there's only a 4K disc only. So the Arrow version has the 4K disc with the special features, where this one has the 4K disc with the special features as well, and the regular Blu-ray if you want it. And it is region free. It does have some differences in special features, which I thought was quite fascinating, and I thought I'd talk about that now. The two main new special features you do get compared to the Arrow version versus the imprint is the portrait of Bridget Lynn kind of heritage, essentially an archival documentary, an hour and 41-minute archival documentary, which is completely brand new in terms of the imprint version, which is on there. And you also do get a Fans Collection Episode 2 Peking Opera Blues, which is about 25 minutes, which is a big difference in terms of, just again, showing a bit more celebration of the film itself. So you do get two different extras, the standard kind of subtitles, which gives you the film presentation itself, and then versus the alternative track, which is a bit more mature, a bit more historically accurate to what they're saying and what they're referencing. So it requires a little bit more maybe deep dive into the kind of historical kind of background of the film itself. So I think it's an interesting kind of difference there. It purely comes down to where you live, what's more cost effective, how far do you want to go in terms of owning both versions, getting one or the other. I think the Shout Factory version is very much out of the equation. However, I think both versions are excellent in their own individual right, and they offer both different things. So I think it is an interesting kind of comparison. I'm very curious to see which one you guys have picked up for yourself in terms of a physical media release. So please comment down below. I'd love to know which one you got, the Arrow video version or the glorious Imprint Asia version, which has all the bells and whistles included. So now on to the feature film itself, with Troy Hark's Peking Opera Blues, released in 1996, a couple of years after doing Shanghai Blues, which is a bit of a kind of a screwball kind of comedy, another period kind of drama, dealing with some kind of political kind of aspects, but mostly about the everyday life and a bit of a kind of a doomed kind of romance, kind of a longing for each other. There's some good stuff in that film. I didn't really connect with it. I thought a lot of the comedy kind of fell flat, or didn't really work for me. It was very much a kind of a screwball comedy versus a period drama versus a love story, and I thought it was a bit too messy. Maybe a secondary watch is needed, but I was very curious to see what this film would be, being the fact this was very much in his early days of his kind of career. And Troy Hark, if you've watched the channel, I've gone back and forth with this director quite a few times. There is some wonderful films from this director, and I think he's a great director overall. However, I do think he makes some bad films, and I thought this one might be under the same kind of banner. And as mentioned, I never got access to this film. I never really sought it out. It's very low quality DVD, and it never had the 5-star treatment until now. Very happy to say that Peking Opera Blues is great. I thought this was a really, really good film. Very surprising film for Troy Hark. And maybe I'm being overly kind of, mean there in terms of the director. I know him for doing more comedy less than anything else. And I think his priorities maybe not always in line with what I enjoy. Maybe there's a bit of a kind of a disconnect there, but it stars three wonderful, gorgeous actresses with Bridget Lynn as the main leading character. You've got Shui Chung and Sally Yang, which was also in Shanghai Blues, also recently in The Killer, which I talked about on the Arrow video review. So definitely three wonderful actresses and the main leading roles of this entire production, this entire movie. The actresses here are giving absolutely stellar, wonderful performances throughout the entire runtime. Three very distinct, very defined characters, having their own kind of energy in terms of what they bring to their own characters and how they interact with each other. I am getting a little ahead of myself. Let's talk about and break down the film itself. And there's a little bit of a hint in the title, being Peking Opera Blues. It is centered around a Peking Opera performance in a small little town, which has a lot of drama in terms of the political kind of shifts between two different generals and how they operate and how they kind of hold dominion in this town alongside a local authority. And you've got the everyday citizens in different shifts of power, including the three main leading actresses and a lot of the kind of conspirators and the government kind of officials. It's a very kind of heavy political film, but it also is a light comedy. It is also a delightful kind of theatre performance, showcasing extraordinaire. As mentioned before, in terms of my samurai videos I did, and I do have the official box set now, there is two types of films out there. There is a more of a streamlined kind of entertaining film. Jump into the film. I want to be entertained. I want to laugh. I want to be dazzled by the kind of the wire work of the action set pieces, and I don't want to do too much thinking. I want the film to be a fun movie to watch. However, there are movies like this in terms of Peking Opera Blues, which give you not just three gorgeous and very talented women, for an hour and 45 minutes, alongside a very shifting kind of conspiracy thriller. We've been going against the kind of the Qin dynasty during the 19th century, different kind of political kind of movements going around in terms of stealing documents. You've got Bridget Lynn's character, which is the daughter of a general which has come into the town, which has made some shady deals with foreign banks and signed away God knows how much money in terms of interest, and just to kind of get wealth and power in a position now, so he can maintain his position, maintain his wealth, maintain his troops, and have control over this town, essentially. The daughter is very much loyal to him, but also never recognizes the bigger picture, the bigger scope of the damage it's going to cause to China, because from my understanding, this was very much a civil war was breaking out between different kind of fractions and different people of power. You got one general coming in, having all the control, he gets assassinated, someone takes over, yin and yang, it will just keep on happening over and over again. A lot going on in terms of the big scope, in terms of the context of the film. And I think it just require a bit more research. And I think down to the wonderful special features on this edition definitely gives you a lot more insight in terms of what was going on during this kind of decade, in terms of 1913, I believe, leading into, the 1920s, and then obviously World War I, World War II, so on and so forth. A lot going on in China during this time. And being the fact that Troy Hawks decided to make a film around that, a very shifty kind of political kind of, thriller going back and forth, a lot of movie components, while doing a light, breezy, delightful kind of comedy with three brilliant women, wonderful supporting cast, showcasing the talent and the efforts behind Peking Opera, showing some of the kind of breaking the mold in terms of, women not being allowed to go into, Peking Opera performances. It was men dressing up as women. And I thought that was a bit of an interesting conversation when I watched it with my partner, in terms of this idea of being, a lot of countries in terms of Hong Kong, the UK, wherever, America, there's a lot of homophobic kind of, nature in a lot of society. And it's interesting to me that you get these films that are breaking down those barriers, breaking down those kind of walls. It's hypocritical and funny that the film basically discards and has a very shameful kind of attitude towards women, and saying you're going to ruin my business, you're going to ruin these performances, in terms of women performing in Peking Opera, but we'll rather have the 40-year-old man dressing up as a woman, acting like a kind of a queen, and even to the point where a kind of a local kind of, police constable character wants to marry the man dressed up as a woman, even extorting that person to a great level. I think is really fun. And there's even comments in the film very early on saying, man, that man looks more beautiful than the whore I had last night. That's really funny. It's really kind of, there's a lot of kind of upfront comedy and there's a lot of subtle comedy. And I think the film has a good fine line. And I think sometimes, for me personally, Troy Hawk really struggles with that. And, sometimes he can go way too far. Wonderful performances between the three main leading women stars, which I think is fantastic. Good to see three strong, capable women owning the screen for the time, having three defined performances, individual characters that have their own agendas, have their own motivation, have their own backgrounds, have their own reasons for doing the things they do in the film. Bridget Lynn's character, as mentioned, is the daughter of the general. She wants to steal the documents to expose what was going on. You've got Sally Young's character, which is someone who wants to be recognized and wants to get into picking up performances. Her dad runs the kind of the theater production, and she is constantly shamed and humiliated and told to go back home, told to make the food, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be a part of the wonderful history and historical kind of performances, and she gets a chance to do that in the film and really demonstrate her skill set, which I think is really fantastic. And as we know from history, this is something that does become a bit more of a practice later on. You have Shui Chung, which is a bit more of a traditional Choi Hok kind of character, but again, a bit more of a strict back. She's someone who's a singer, someone who got messed around with the first general during the start of the film. The new general came in, she's owed a lot of money, and she basically, throughout the film, is just trying to make her money and to skip town, essentially. She has no real big interest in the bigger political kind of shift that's going on. She ends up in a lot of tricky situations, and she ends up being friends with Bridget Lynn's character, which falls into the other character, and she becomes a good kind of member of that kind of team. And I really like her honesty. I really like her kind of transparency in the film in terms of being, I'm a singer, I'm tired of this town, I want what's owed to me, I want my money, and she's making whatever deals that she can. There's a bit of kind of a ruffle of feathers. There's a bit of a kind of a conflict that just happened towards the middle and third act of the film. But she is a character with a heart of gold, and she wants that gold as well in terms of being of the heart. So all three characters are very well defined, and the showmanship in terms of the picking up performances. You got all the great wireworks, there's some great action set pieces, some comedic moments going back and forth. There is some great kind of location production value as well included. The third act kind of escape sequence I think is great, and I think it's just a really fun, delightful film, and I thought it was surprising for me personally, not to give too much hardship against Troy Hawk. I thought this was a very mature film. I thought this was a good fine line between all the things that I want to see from this director, and I think he delivered it personally.
你識唔識規矩㗎？戲院唔俾女人入嘅。
唔俾我喺後台揾人㗎。
後台冇女人啫，唔係使乜。
In terms of the special features for the Imprint Asia version, is very similar to the Arrow Video version, and of course the Shout Factory, apart from 2 additional extras which are exclusive on the Imprint version, which I think is usually a rarity, because it's usually the opposite way around. So let's dive into the special features and to see what you're going to get in terms of the edition itself. You do get a brand new audio commentary by James Mudge. You got a brand new interview with Mark Chung, which is one of the actors in the film. About 25 minutes, really good, insightful in terms of his getting into kind of, Cinema City, working with some of the big directors, and actually talking about he was swapped out from Bear Tomorrow. He was originally going to play Mark, and Chung Yong-fat was going to play his character, but they switched roles and it ended up working quite well for each individual actor, which I thought was very fascinating. He was about 21, 22 at the time when he did Peking Opera Blues, so talks about his experience getting into filming and working with some of the big directors and doing some interesting projects with some of the big directors at that time. So wonderful insight, a brand new interview with that actor. You get a interview with Ray Wong, the cinematographer, which is about 11 minutes, talking about him just filming these gorgeous women and working with the actresses and the director. And standard with the Shout Factory, Arrow, and Imprint version, you do get a Hong Kong confidential insight into Peking Opera Blues with author Grady Hendrix, which I think is great. A 15-minute extra, which gives a much more concise, bottled kind of information that you need to know in terms of the context, in terms of the actresses and the director, what was going on in terms of the filming kind of storyline and what was going on around it in terms of Cinema City, and the critical response, the audience response. Really good insight. I really enjoy that extra. You get a brand new interview with David West with the cinema of Troy Hawk, which I think is great as well, about 25 minutes. Again, giving an extended version of what Grady Hendrix did in terms of his Hong Kong Confidential, a bit more of an elaborate kind of version from his own perspective in terms of his insight into Troy Hawk's kind of career and how this one lines up compared to his other movies. Again, really fascinating, really interesting. You get a brand new extra with Peking History Blues, the setting and the time of a Troy Hawk masterpiece, which is a more of a historical kind of perspective. You also get lots of archival extras with the actors and crew itself. You get interviews with director Troy Hawk, archival extra. And the 2 differences you do get on in terms of the imprint version is the portrayal of Bridget Lynn, which is an archival documentary, an hour and 41 minutes, talking about Bridget Lynn's kind of filmography and her career. Wonderful stuff. Absolutely recommend checking that one out. And then you also get a fan collection, episode 2, Peking Opera Blues, which is a hardcore fan showing his entire collection of Peking Opera, from props to posters, all sorts. It does say as well, this is episode 2, and I couldn't see this on the basically City on Fire edition, so I wonder where episode 1 is. Maybe if there's an episode 3, I'm not too sure, but very interesting. So there you go, guys. It's been my whopper of a Peking Opera deep dive into this film itself, the wonderful special features, the comparison between the imprint version and our video version. This has been a great video to kind of put together. I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions on the editions themselves, the feature films, the special features. What are your thoughts, guys? Please comment down below. So in the meantime, guys, I'm for reviews. Signing out.